Marcus Thorne believes the producer of the year accolade will seal his legacy. He has no idea that this is only the beginning of his downfall. He's up there on that stage, drenched in light so intense it could incinerate a weaker man, taking in the shoot of an adoring audience. From here, in the frigid, blue-lit cave of the audio control room, he appears to be a god. And beautifully dressed, 55-year-old deity of synth pop and stolen fantasies. But I see him for what he is, a tombstone. A shiny, pricey marker on the tomb of the man I used to be. My name is David Chen. My security badge, which is fastened to the pocket of my drab gray technician outfit, states so. David Chen is 42. He's dependable, unobtrusive, and nearly undetectable. He keeps his head down, monitors his levels, and ensures the show works well. He is the last person you would ever notice. That's by design. The man whose eyes are looking out from David Chen's face is Liam Cole, or what is left of him. And he's been waiting a long time for this night. My hands remain solid on the console. My heart beats slowly, coldly in my chest. 10 years. 10 years of boiling wrath, delicately iced and aged like bitter wine. Tonight, I'll serve it. Applause pours over him like a tsunami of validation. He raises the gleaming gold statue, which symbolizes his intellect, my genius. He smiles that familiar, predatory smile that once captivated a desperate young guy in a shoddy suit. He does not see the ghost in the machine. He doesn't realize that every wire, speaker, and pixel on that massive screen behind him is a string on my puppet, and I'm about to pull it all. He's going to deliver his victory speech, but all he'll be remembered for tonight is the dissonant chord of his own stunning implosion. 10 years ago, the only light I had was the warm, dusty glow of a thrift store bulb in our modest Los Angeles apartment. The air smelled like clo, not sterile arena air conditioning or charred electronics. Like the lemon tea she always drank and the delicate, clean aroma of the laundry detergent she insisted on using, even though we couldn't afford it. I was 32, a boy with a guitar and a hole in his jeans, yet I was the wealthiest man on the planet. I sat on the floor, the aged wood of my old acoustic guitar pressing against my ribs like an extension of my body. The symphony that came from my fingers was simple, lovely, and as important to me as breathing. That was her song. In the quiet space, where the starlight fades, you're the only melody my heart ever made. My voice was a faint hum, serving as a guide for the actual instrument. Clue sat opposite me, wrapped in covers on our uncomfortable sofa. She was a watercolor painting of the woman I'd married. Her brilliant colors faded from illness, and her crisp lines flattened into a delicate fog. Her skin was pale and translucent, yet her eyes reflected the entire cosmos. They gleamed as she listened, a gentle joy that resisted the sickness that was building inside her. She hummed along, her voice a breathy, airy harmony that clung to my guitar notes like ivy. It was weaker than it used to be, yet it was still the clearest sound I'd ever heard. I stopped playing, leaving the final chord in the air between us. What do you think? I think the bridge needs something. Maybe a minor seventh. She gave me the smile that always made the world feel good, even when everything went wrong. It's perfect, Liam. It's our song. Her remarks were followed by a cuff, a dry, racking sound that pierced the peaceful closeness of the room. It was the sound I dreaded the most. I laid the guitar down as if it were fragile glass and was by her side in an instant, my hand caressing soothing circles on her back. It was a pointless, desperate act, but it was all I had. My gaze drifted to the coffee table, to the mountain of material we were buried by. A mountain range of medical bills, each one branded with a cruel, scarlet, past due E. They were a continual, screaming reminder of our reality. I'm going to make it, I said quietly, my voice thick with a promise I was afraid I couldn't keep. I drew her into a hug, feeling the delicate bird-like form of her bones beneath the sweater. I promise, Colo. This song is going to save us. She rested her head on my chest, her breathing weak. Our flat was modest, the furniture was used, and the city outside was a merciless beast, but in that moment, wrapped in her arms, I had everything. She was my entire universe in symphony, and I was going to let a monster enter our refuge. Infinity Records offices were on the top floor of a glass and steel tower that cut through the Los Angeles smog. It was a different cosmos than our small abode. The air was frigid and smelled like money, a sterile combination of expensive fragrance and air freshener. The walls weren't adorned with our cheap prints and framed photos. They were covered in gold and platinum records, testaments to Marcus Thorne's magic touch. They claimed that whatever he touched turned to gold. I just didn't understand it was because he had removed the gold from everything else. He sat at a desk so huge it might have served as a landing strip, dressed in a suit that looked sharp enough to cut you. Marcus Thorne was more than simply a man, he was an event. He exuded a predatory allure that made you want to be consumed by him in order to get close to that power. I felt like a toddler in his father's office, my worn laptop looking like rubbish on his gleaming mahogany desk. I pressed play, and the unfinished demo of Chloe's song filled the sumptuous silence. It was simply my acoustic guitar and her delicate but genuine voice, captured on a cheap microphone in our bedroom. It sounded like a prayer inside that sterile chamber. Marcus leaned back in his leather throne and closed his eyes. He tucked his fingers behind his chin and nodded slowly to the rhythm. He was a shark, not only smelling but tasting blood in the current. When the final note faded, he opened his eyes, which were shining. "Kid," he muttered, with a deep, gravelly purr. "That's not just a song. That's a goddamn hit. Your wife's voice, it's haunting, ethereal. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. My wife, she needs an operation. I know this song has value. I just need an advance, enough to cover it, and credit, of course. Co-writer credit." He stood up with a fluid, beautiful motion for a man his size. He circled the desk and rested a large, paternal hand on my shoulder. It was intended to be reassuring, but it seemed more like ownership, like a brand. "Don't you worry about anything," he urged, his voice full of manufactured sincerity. "You came to the right place. We're gonna make history together, you and I. Trust me." He pushed a contract over the desk, as thick as a phone book. "You just sign right here, and you can consider all your financial problems solved." Desperation is a potent anesthetic. It numbs your instincts and clouds your vision. I saw the possibility of Chloe's health, a future, and an end to the crushing panic that kept me awake every night. I didn't notice the fine print. I didn't notice the provisions that signed away not only the rights, but the whole spirit of our song. I took up the weighty, costly pen he offered me. It felt cold in my hands. As I signed my name, Liam Cole, I noticed his lips curling into a smile. The smile was not that of a partner. It was the smile of a hunter towering over his prey. My 1998 Toyota Corolla smelled of stale coffee and worry. I was going home from another dead end meeting when another producer respectfully told me it wasn't the right fit. Thorne's advance was meant to be wired 3 days ago. Then 2. Then yesterday. His assistant kept giving me the runaround, and Marcus himself became impossible to reach. The hospital had called again in the morning. They needed a decision and a deposit. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I struggled with the radio, seeking a distraction from the frenzied buzzing in my own thoughts. I just wanted to listen to music and block out the sound of my own failure. And here it is, the new track that is absolutely dominating the airwaves. Hitting #1 in its first week, this is Starlight by pop sensation Ashley Vance. The speakers emitted a loud explosion of sound, a powerful four-on-the-floor dancing beat, a wall of shimmering synths, and a melody. A music so achingly, intimately familiar that my heart sank in my chest. It was Chloe's song, but it was ugly, a few-house mirror reflection of what we had made. It had been gutted, stripped of its essence, and adorned in the auditory equivalent of glitter and low-cost neon. And then the vocals came on. A youthful, generic voice, attuned to artificial perfection, singing our lines. Club's words. I slammed on the brakes, and the car skidded to a halt in the middle of the street. Horns sounded all around me, but I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was the desecrated music. The DJ's voice came back in, oozing with fake excitement. An incredible track, masterfully crafted by the genius producer himself, Marcus Thorne. The name struck me like a physical blow. I sat there immobilized while the world shifted on its axis. I groped for my phone, my fingers trembling so much that I could hardly dial his number. Go straight to voicemail. The cold, premeditated brutality of it all began to sink into my bones, like poison. He had not only stolen our song, he'd waited. He waited until he knew I was at my most desperate and shattered. He had waited until he realized I had no other options. The next time I became aware of my surroundings, I was on the floor of a hospital hallway. The linoleum was cold and unyielding against my cheek, and the air was dense with the aroma of antiseptic and quiet agony. I do not recall driving there. I remember a doctor with tired eyes and a gentle, sorrowful expression telling me things I couldn't understand. Words like complications and couldn't wait any longer. Marcus promised checks, the wire transfer that was always just a day away. We're all phantoms. Lies were erected upon the foundation of my hope. I peered through the tiny glass window in Clue's door. She was asleep, her face pale against the white pillow. She appeared smaller than ever, as if she were fading into the covers. I wanted to smash the glass, go in and grab her, and apologize for failing her. But my limbs felt as if they were full of lead. A nurse with a lovely smile and tired eyes stepped out of the room a little later. She knelt alongside me on the floor. She did not need to say anything. I noticed it in her expression. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "we're so sorry. She's gone." It was very peaceful. Peaceful. The word was an absurdity. My universe had just been atomized, ripped apart with terrible, screaming force, and she claimed it was serene. There was no sound. No scream sprang from my throat. No tears fell. There was only a wide, silent, shrieking vacuum. He'd taken our music, and now its absence had claimed her. My symphony was over. There was just stillness. A week later, I was sitting in a tight, dusty law office that smelled like old paper and defeat. The lawyer, a guy whose worn face appeared to be carved from the same sad wood as his desk, pushed the contract Marcus had given me back across the table. He sighed a long, exhausted exhale. "I'm sorry, son. This contract is an ironclad piece of work. A perfect trap. You sold the complete rights, all of them, for a one-time fixed fee." He lightly tapped a section. "No royalties. No writer's credit. Nothing. Thorne's legal team, they're sharks. We wouldn't stand a chance. It would cost you everything you don't have just to get laughed out of court." But he promised. I heard a gruff, foreign voice add. The lawyer offered me a look of deep sympathy. "In this business, son, a promise is just the breath someone uses to lie to you. What matters is the ink on the paper. You were legally, flawlessly screwed." The emptiness inside me was no longer empty. Something was starting to grow in that emptiness. It was hot, black, and patient. It was hatred, pure, unadulterated, and, for the first time in my life, concentrated. The system wasn't simply failing me. It was designed to keep men like Marcus Thorne safe from men like me. Justice was not blind, it was purchased and paid for. And in that gloomy office, I realized a fundamental fact. If I wanted justice, I'd have to make it myself. I'd have to start from scratch with the ruins of my own life as the basis. 10 years, a full decade. That's a long time to carry a grudge. I didn't hold a grudge. It was a furnace. I spent 10 years fueling, fanning, and transforming a wild, roaring inferno of pain and wrath into a single, focused, white-hot point of light. The man watching television that night in a filthy, messy apartment hundreds of miles from Los Angeles was not Liam Cole. Liam Cole died in the hospital corridor. He was interred in a pauper's grave of regret and failure. The individual who survived was a vessel, a shell. And tonight, that shell was going to be filled with purpose. Marcus Thorne was hosting a late-night talk show on the beat-up TV screen. He was older and grayer around the temples, yet he exuded the same smug, untouchable aura. He was now a kingmaker and an industry titan. The host, a sycophant with blindingly white teeth, gushed over him. "So, Marcus," the guest asked, "what's the secret to your incredible success? Year after year, hit after hit. How do you do it?" Marcus leaned closer, his expression very sincere. It was the identical expression he had given me in his office. "It's about honesty," he continued, his tone tinged with fake humility. "You have to find that raw, genuine emotion, a melody that comes from the heart. Music is truth." The words struck me like a physical shock, a surge of lightning that restarted a heart that I had assumed had ceased beating long ago. Truth. He ventured to speak the truth. I grabbed the remote and turned off the television, leaving the room in darkness. The silence that followed was filled with new vitality. I saw a stranger's face reflected on the blank screen. Gaunt, bearded, with eyes that had seen too much but felt too little for too long. But now, in the gloom, those eyes shone. Liam Cole, the devastated musician, had died and gone. David Chen, the avenging angel, had recently been born. My transformation wasn't a montage. It was a difficult, exhausting, and terrible process. It was 10 years of self-erasure and reconstruction. First, I sold everything. The instrument, a few items of furniture, and the car. Everything that connected me with Liam Cole. I only preserved one thing, an inexpensive cassette recorder containing the initial demo of Chloe's song. It served as a souvenir and a memory. I relocated to Phoenix, a city of transience and sun-drenched obscurity. I found a job washing dishes and then waiting tables and lived in cockroach-infested apartments. I saved every cent. I didn't drink and didn't socialize. I became a ghost. And with the money I saved, I returned to school. Not for music, but for the science underlying it. I enrolled in a community college program focused on audio engineering and sound production. I wasn't an artist anymore. I was a scientist. I did not study melody or harmony. Instead, I studied frequencies, signal flows, compression ratios, and digital audio workstations. I learned the language of the machine and the architecture of sound. I addressed it with the cool precision of a surgeon or bomb maker. I became fixated, channeling my anguish and hatred into a single goal. Other students were there because they enjoyed music. I was there because I planned to weaponize it. I graduated as the top of my class. I started working in low-level positions at modest recording studios. I was quiet, efficient, and really talented at my job. People respected my work, but they didn't know me. David Chen had no past, family, or friends. He was merely a person who was really skilled with a mixing board. I meticulously crafted my resume, a new identity and a new history. The wild-haired, impassioned musician was gone, replaced by a clean-cut, bespectacled technician with an unwavering neutral look. A ghost, perfectly suited to haunt the machine. 5 years ago, I relocated back to Los Angeles. A year later, I applied for an entry-level work as an audio technician at Infinity Records. During my interview, I was asked why I wanted to work there. I looked the department head in the eye and stated, with immaculate, artificial sincerity, because Marcus Thorne is a genius. I want to learn from the best. I landed the job. For 4 years, I've strolled these halls, a ghost in plain view. I am the one who fixes a faulty cable, configures the microphones, and archives the digital sessions. I'm invisible. And from my invisibility, I've watched. I've learned. I've planted the seeds of my vengeance. It started little. During a session for a new pop starlet Marcus was investing millions in, a shallow, talentless girl named Crystal. I added a tiny, high-frequency oscillation to the master recording. It was almost subconscious, a high frequency you couldn't hear but could feel. A persistent, uncomfortable sensation similar to a mosquito whining just outside of your hearing. The record was released. It failed because critics considered it technically flawed and harsh on the ears. Marcus was outraged, firing 2 of his finest engineers without suspecting the calm geek who brought him his coffee. Then there was Aria, a young singer-songwriter with a raw honey voice and a startling amount of talent. She was the real deal, the artist I used to aspire to be. I witnessed Marcus attempting to do to her what he did to me. He wanted to smooth out her edges, auto-tune her distinct voice, and transform her emotional songs into generic pop trash. She protested, and for that, he buried her, putting her project on hold indefinitely. One night, while working late, I discovered an unfinished instrumental track on a hard drive, a beautiful, melancholy tune Marcus had rejected. It was ideal for her. I sent the MP3 to her anonymously via email using a burner account. "Your voice belongs on this," is all I wrote. 2 weeks later, she leaked the song online. It went viral. She broke out from her contract with Infinity and rose to prominence as an independent artist, directly competing with Marcus' plastic pop idols. He never realized I was the one who gave her the key to her own cage. Last month, I made my bravest move. Marcus had left a copy of an email he had printed out, a tirade against a big investor, calling a tone-deaf old fool. It was a gift from the cosmos. I created a copy and accidentally placed it in the folder of financial reports being delivered to the same investor's office. The $10 million finance agreement collapsed overnight. Each act was a solitary, discordant note in the symphony of his demise. Tonight was the climax. There were close calls, and my heart beat against my ribs like a caged bird. The closest was tonight, about 1 hour before the show. I was in the main server room, where I wasn't allowed to be, making a last digital duplicate of my evidence on a small, encrypted USB drive. The result of a decade's worth of digital archaeologing old audio files, scanned contracts, and incriminating emails recovered from lost hard drives. The door suddenly hissed open. Marcus Thorne stood there, illuminated by the hallway light, resembling some evil deity. My blood became chilly. I pulled the USB drive from the port and placed it in my pocket, My motion slow and deliberate, my face a mask of calm neutrality. I gave a small nod. "Mr. Thorne," I said, my tone completely even. He squinted at me with his head tilted. A spark of something, a ghost of a recollection, passed across his face. "Have we met?" My heart was pounding, yet my voice was the calmest thing in the room. "I don't believe so, sir. I'm just one of the new techs." "David Chen." He kept my stare for a second longer, his thoughts wandering through the thousands of faces he'd stomped on over the years. He discovered nothing. I was just another piece of the puzzle, another gear in his vast machine. He muttered, waved dismissively, and went away. I leaned against the server rack, releasing a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for 10 years. The plan was still safe. The ghost remained undetected. The arena is a universe of managed chows. Light, sound, and cameras swirl around a galaxy of stars. And here, at the silent, pulsing center of it all, I am the universe's master. Marcus Thorne sits in the front row, like a monarch on his throne, smug. The past year has been difficult for him. A failed record, a viral competitor, and a lost investment. But tonight's Producer of the Year award will be his redemption. It will prove he is still untouchable. Aria is ending her act on stage. She took the tune I sent her and soared. She's a supernova that shines brighter than anyone on Marcus' roster. Our eyes contact for a fraction of a second through the monitor. She knows. Not everything, but she anticipates a reckoning. She is a part of it now. I offer her a small, almost imperceptible nod. Everything is in place. It is time. The presenter, a woman wearing a fake smile and a sequined outfit, tears open the packet. The camera focuses on Marcus' face, which is a portrait of feigned surprise and intense joy. And the award for Producer of the Year goes to Marcus Thorne. The arena erupts. He kisses the starlet next to him, slaps his sycophantic lawyer on the back, and walks confidently to the stage. Yes, he does. For maybe another 30 seconds. He accepts the golden statuette and enjoys the cheers. He walks up to the microphone, a predatory smirk on his face. "Wow," he says, his voice resonating across the stadium. I'm truly speechless. "I want to think." Click. I press one button on my console. His microphone goes dead. A second chew, and the stage lights go off, leaving him in a sudden, stunning blackness, save for a single, glaring spotlight that pins him like an insect under a microscope. The noise of the throng fades into a confused, apprehensive silence. And then, into the silence, I raise a single fader. A pleasant, clear music permeates the enormous space. It's the soft, tentative strum of an antique acoustic guitar. My guitar, and suddenly there was a voice. A pure, sensitive, and stunningly beautiful voice. Chloe, this is the original demo. Her voice, our music, in its purest form, reverberating throughout the cathedral of his success. It's a ghostly whisper that sounds like a scream. I keep an eye on Marcus on the monitor. He freezes. His smile fades. His gaze darts about, looking for the source of the sound. What the hell is this? I could read his lips. He doesn't have to wonder too long. Another cue. The big LED screen behind him, which should show the award's logo, comes to light. It is not a logo. It is a window into the past. Grainy home video footage comes, showing a younger myself and a vibrant, healthy Chloe sitting on our apartment floor, laughing as we put together the music that is currently playing. Marcus' face becomes limp. Blood drains from it. He recognizes the melodies. He recognizes the ghost. The screen changes. It's now a high-resolution photograph of the contract he asked me to sign. Key phrases, all rights in perpetuity, one-time fee, and waives all claims to authorship, are circled in harsh red. The audience begins to murmur, gradually progressing from a hum to a roar of confusion and intrigue. Another cue. Now it is an audio file. I play a recording of a phone call I discovered on a backup server. A conversation between Marcus and his lawyer from the week after he purchased my song. The kid was desperate. Marcus's pompous and sneaky voice echoes throughout the arena. His wife was sick or something. I got the fucking song of the century for pocket change. He'll never see a dime. The audience gasps. The sound is a single sharpened take of breath. Marcus stumbles back, his face a canvas of bewilderment that transforms into sheer primal panic. He understands what is happening. He realizes he's ruined. But he's not sure who. Not yet. Final cue. I add the footage from the little webcam I've set up on my console. My face can now be seen in a corner of the enormous screen. David Chen's face. I carefully, intentionally remove my glasses. I look squarely into the camera, at him. My voice, boosted by the same system that was designed to convey his victory speech, fills the arena. It is peaceful, cool, and clear. Do you recognize me now, Marcus? He looks at my image, his jaw hanging open. The gears are working, and the ghost of Liam Cole has finally clicked into place behind David Chen's eyes. The recognition dawns, followed by a rush of utter horror. You took my song, my voice says, in a sarcastic eulogy to his career. You took my wife. Tonight, I'm just taking it all back. He looks like he has been shot. He has been revealed, his carefully constructed world obliterated in 90 seconds of indisputable truth, shown live to millions. But the final blow does not come from me. As if on cue, Aria returns to the stage, holding a live microphone. She stands a few feet away from Marcus Thorne, who is immobilized and ashamed. That man's name is Liam Cole, she explains, her voice full of conviction. And Marcus Thorne didn't just ruin his life. 20 years ago, he did the same thing to my father, another songwriter you've never heard of. This was never just his plan. It is over. A personal vendetta has just turned into a public execution, performed not by a single ghost, but by a chorus of all the artists he had silenced and obliterated. The aftermath is a frenzy of flashing lights and shouted inquiries. Security officers are dragging a battered Marcus Thorne off the stage. He doesn't resemble a titan anymore. He resembles a little, elderly man, dwarfed by the abrupt, catastrophic collapse of his own legacy. The reporters are like sharks in a feeding frenzy, with a wall of cameras and microphones preventing his escape. His empire, which was founded on lies and thievery, fell to dust on live television. I view it all from the arena's rooftop. The cool night air feels nice on my face. Down below, the turmoil is stunning. The blinking lights of police vehicles have joined the limousines. This is a funeral procession for a monarch. We did it. Aria's voice startled me. She joins me at the railing. She's still vibrating with energy, but beneath it, I sense tranquility. Her own spirit was laid to rest tonight. You did it. I corrected her. You were the one who had the courage to walk out there. It was your plan. She responds softly. I just sang my part. I stare up at the smoggy, starless Los Angeles sky. The raging furnace inside me, which has been my constant companion for a decade, is finally cooling. The fury has abated, but no joy remains. Not really satisfied. Just be quiet. I don't feel happy. I confess, the words taste odd on my mouth. I just feel quiet. The war is over. I won't go back to being Liam. That man has passed away forever. I will remain David, the quiet technician, a guy made of scar tissue and shadows. Chloe was not brought back via vengeance. It wasn't going to. But it resulted in a horrific, harsh form of justice. It provided balance. I utilized the power of music and sound, which he stole from me, to restore the truth. When I arrive at a desolate beach, the sun has just begun to bleed across the horizon. The waves sweep in and out with a soft, regular shushing, as if the earth is sighing a sigh of relaxation. The air is salty yet clean. I am still David Chen. But for the first time in a long time, I feel a glimmer of Liam Cole within me. I take the ancient cassette recorder out of my pocket. My thumb taps the play button. The tape hisses, and her voice, along with the sound of my old guitar, fills the morning air. Our music, Chulu's song, is clean and untainted. It perfectly complements the sound of the ocean. For the first time in 10 years, a faint, sad, but genuine grin appears on my lips. It feels like a strange muscle. They say that revenge is best served cold. For 10 years, I allowed mine to ice solid. I held it frozen in the deepest recesses of my soul. Last night, I served it on a stage of fire and light for the entire world to behold. And now, in the silence that follows, in the empty space left by the wrath, I can hear her song again. I close my eyes. The sun warms my face. And for the first time, I'm just listening.